Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to another classic pay-per-view review. As this time, I'm reviewing WWF Survivor Series, the second annual, which took place on November 24th, 1988, from Richfield Coliseum in suburban Richfield, Ohio, just outside of the Cleveland area. There have been many reviews on YouTube about the very first Survivor Series, and now this review of 1988. Not as good as the original Survivor Series, but still a pretty good show nonetheless. We kicked off with the first 5-on-5 elimination match and a little different concept as we had co-captains. We had Brutus the Barber Beefcake and the Ultimate Warrior, who was the Intercontinental Champion at the time, who were co-captaining a team. And on their teammates were Sam Houston, Jumpin' Jim Brunzell, and the Blue Blazer, which was the late Owen Hart. And on the opposite team, it was co-captains Honky Tonk Man and Outlaw Ron Bass, and their teammates Dangerous Danny Davis, Bad News Brown, and Greg the Hammer Valentine. Now, what happened was Beefcake and Honky Tonk Man had been feuding over the Intercontinental title throughout the spring and summer of that year. Beefcake was going to face Honky Tonk Man at the first ever SummerSlam pay-per-view, but Beefcake was attacked by Outlaw Ron Bass and was cut open with his spur, and Beefcake was unable to appear. And at SummerSlam itself, Warrior ended up defeating Honky Tonk Man in under a minute, ending Honky Tonk Man's long reign as Intercontinental Champion. He held it for like over a year. And originally on Warrior, Beefcake's team was supposed to be The Rock, Don Morocco, but forgot the reason he left, quit, or got fired prior to the pay-per-view, and he was replaced by Jumpin' Jim Brunzell, formerly of the Killer Bees. So this match starts out with Beefcake and Valentine, who were the Dream Team, and up until early 1987, they went at it. Davis hit a knee on Beefcake's back from the apron. Davis got tagged in, and then Beefcake put him out with a sleeper hold in less than 30 seconds. Eventually Valentine got back in there, butted heads with Beefcake again. Eventually Brunzell got tagged in. He took Valentine's dropkick, but unbeknownst to Brunzell, Valentine tagged Bad News Brown, and Bad News went to work, and Brunzell double thumbed Bad News in the eyes. Bad News really worked over Brunzell and got to the point where Brunzell reversed the whip to the corner. Bad News avoided a charging Brunzell, hit the buckle, and after missing Bad News in the corner, Brunzell is trying to tag. It's kind of like an alligator arm, so to speak, and Bad News nailed Brunzell with his finish, the Ghetto Blaster, and pinned him to eliminate him from the matchup. From there, Sam Houston came in the ring and goes to work on Bad News, and I think Greg Valentine was tagged in, and Bad News got tagged back in. Valentine accidentally hits Bad News when he was aiming for Houston, and Bad News wanted to go out with Valentine, but Bass and Honky Tonk Man try to calm the situation down. Bad News ultimately leaves the ring, walks out of the match, and gets deliberately counted out. Bad News Brown was that one heel who just was like a loner and just couldn't seem to get along with anybody. All right. So at that point, Bad News was counted out. Houston and Bass are butting heads in the ring, and eventually Houston tries to monkey flip Bass out of the corner, but Bass counters it with a power slam and pins Sam Houston to eliminate him from the match. At that point, Ultimate Warrior finally got in the match, and he went to town on Bass, Valentine, and the Honky Tonk Man. Let's see. Blue Blazer finally got in, and he was wowing the crowd. One point, Warrior They did a rocket launcher move where Warrior pressed Blazer off the top rope onto Bass. Eventually, Valentine got tagged in and Blazer went to the top rope, but the Honky Tonk Man pushed him off. And then Valentine turned the Heartbreaker, that shin guard he wore, around, puts Blazer in the figure 4 leg lock, and Blazer submitted. So at this point, it's three heels to the two faces. Beefcake took punishment from Bass, Valentine, and Honky Tonk Man. Eventually, Honky Tonk Man tried shake, rattle, and roll, but Beefcake countered with a backdrop. Eventually, Beefcake puts the sleeper hold on the Honky Tonk Man, but they both fall out through the ropes out to the floor. Beefcake then puts the sleeper on Honky Tonk Man on the floor, but eventually both Honky Tonk and Beefcake were both counted out, eliminated from the match, leaving Warrior on his own to face both Bass and Valentine. Warrior was double teamed by both men, and they were quick tagging on him. Eventually, Warrior hits both men with a double clothesline. Warrior bounced off the ropes, hits Bass with a running double axe handle, which was Hulk Hogan's finishing move in the movie No Holds Barred, which came out less than a year after this show. Warrior pinned Bass with the running axe handle, and then a short time later, Warrior did the same to Valentine, and Warrior sole survived the match for his team. Now, obviously, this match was done to really get the Warrior over. But the problem was, he pinned both Bass and Valentine with the running axe handle, so I don't know if they were just running through the motions or, trying to get the match done because, it's like no flying shoulder tackle on both of them, no press slam, no splash. Okay. Then from there we have the tag team elimination matchup as we see the captains, the Powers of Pain, Barbarian and Warlord, and their teammates, the Rockers, Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels, the Young Stallions, Jim Powers and Paul Roma, the Hart Foundation, Bret the Hitman Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and the British Bulldog, Dave Boy Smith and Dynamite Kid. They took on the captains, Demolition, Acid Smash with Mr. Fuji, the Conquistadors, 1 and 2, the Brainbusters, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson with Bobby the Brain Heenan, the Bolsheviks, Boris Zukov and Nikolai Volkov, even though ring announcer Howard Finkel, rest his soul, introduced them with Slick. I didn't see Slick at ringside for this matchup. And the final team was Jock and Raymond, the Fabulous Rougeau Brothers, with their manager, mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. Eventually, I think I can't now. This was like the longest match of the show. This multiple tag teams and stuff, and the placement of the Conquistadors kind of was a head scratcher to me because the Conquistadors for the previous year had been just. For those who don't know, at that time it was Jose Luis Rivera and Jose Estrada Sr. underneath those masks. Before being the Conquistadors, both of those men were known for being used as jobbers, enhancement talent, preliminaries. And they were, even as the Conquistadors, they were losing. They lost to Strike Force, the British Bulldogs, they lost to the Rockers, they lost to Killer Bees, who were no more by the time this pay-per-view took place. And I don't know if one of them did get hurt, because only one Conquistador was seen earlier that year. One of them lost to Ultimate Warrior, one lost to Jake Roberts, I remember one team with Terry Gibbs losing to the Rockers. But in any event, there was just so much in this match with so many guys with button heads and showing moves. Of course, I couldn't write down every bit and piece of this one. But at one point, Davey Boy Smith presses Jacques Rougeau over his head and throws him onto his brother Raymond. The Rockers were double teaming Boris Zukov. Dynamite hits Jock with a snap suplex. Jim Powers had a great drop kick on Zukov. Smash Demolition whips Powers into a Jacques Rougeau drop kick. Uh, Jock, Bret Hart eventually came in the ring. Jock Rougeau hit his flying back elbow. Jock tagged his brother Raymond, whips Bret into the ropes. Raymond goes for a backdrop, but Bret takes it down with a small package and pins Raymond to eliminate the fabulous Rougeau brothers from the matchup. Okay. Hmm. um, Jim Neidhart eventually hits a drop kick on Nikolai Volkov. One of the Conquistadors got pummeled for a point, and they were constantly getting breaks, and they were constantly tagging out every time they looked like they were going to get put away. Nikolai did his press into a backbreaker on Shawn Michaels. Michaels ended up eating Arn Anderson's spine buster. Warlord looked like I think he deadlifted one of the Conquistadors for a press slam, because I think that one Conquistador tried for like a body press, and I don't know if Warlord was supposed to catch him or something went wrong, but it's safe to say Warlord kind of deadlifted him up and press slammed him. Eventually, there were points where Warlord and Barbarian did butt heads with Demolition, which got the crowd going. Yeah. One point, Barbarian he pressed Tully Blanchard over his head and dropped him throat first on the top rope. Eventually, Boris Zukov pins Jim Powers after reversing a flying body press. Barbarian hit a flying shoulder block on Boris. I think Boris at that point he tagged Tully Blanchard, and Tully, was like strutted over to his teammates, and the late Gorilla Monsoon was saying, "Oh, he's supposed to make contact first." Yeah, he strutted over and tagged Nikolai. Tully Blanchard, that is. Mario Jannetty ended up pinning Boris Zukov with a sunset flip and eliminating the Bolsheviks from the matchup. The Hart Foundation hit a double team on the Conquistadors. Neidhart had one of them in a backbreaker, and Bret Hart did his patented second rope elbow that he never seems to miss. Demolition, they were double team pounding away on the Barbarian, and at one point you can hear Axe of Demolition say to referee Earl Hebner, "Get off me!" At one point, Bret's in there with Tully Blanchard. He has Tully down, and looks like he's going for the sharpshooter, but Bret wasn't using that move yet. He's holding on to Tully's legs, and he kicks him right in the gut. Bret leaps over Tully. He's charging him in the corner. Bret takes Tully down with a German suplex. The referee goes to count. Bret's seemingly bridging, but Tully's left shoulder came up, and the referee told Bret, "No, your shoulders were down." His shoulder came up, which that right there eliminated the Hart Foundation. All right. Whew. At that point, Dynamite Kid had the ring, gave Tully Blanchard a great tombstone pile driver. It wasn't called the tombstone as of yet. The Rockers and the Brainbusters, all four of them are brawling in the ring to the point where the referee disqualified both the Rockers and the Brainbusters from the match. So we're really winding down in this one. Davey Boy Smith power slam one of the Conquistadors. Dynamite eventually hits Smash with his snap suplex, but Dynamite misses a headbutt from the top rope. Smash makes Dynamite eat a clothesline and pin him to eliminate the Bulldogs from the matchup. So now the Powers of Pain are all by themselves, left to face Demolition and the Conquistadors. Alrighty. Warlord accidentally posted his own shoulder, tried for a shoulder block in the corner, but it hit the ring post, and Demolition's working over him, that hurting shoulder. At one point, Mr. Fuji comes up to the apron, and he's got this guy's cane, and he's like trying to like get the attention, but the referee tells him to get down. So I don't know if Fuji came to the apron too soon. But Fuji comes to the apron a second time, and both Jesse Ventura and the late Gorilla Monsoon are like baffled. Like, why would he want to like, take a whack at somebody with his cane? Because his men are in the lead or in control. Warlord eventually broke away from Smash from having his arm worked on. Warlord came off the rope, Smash took him down with a clothesline, and Smash is looking at Axe and the Conquistadors. At that point, Fuji held the second and top rope open, and Smash fell through the ropes. Axe comes down from the apron, and he's telling the referee, trying to signal timeout to the referee, but we know there's no timeout in wrestling. But the referee made a 10 count, and as a result, Demolition were eliminated from the match, and Axe was livid at Fuji about what happened, and Axe is trying to tell him, hey man, you cost us to be eliminated, and Fuji's saying, I don't care, I'm the boss. And Fuji's like, poking Axe in the chest with the cane, and then Axe pushes Fuji, turns around, he's ready to walk away. Fuji whacks Axe twice in the back with the cane, but then Smash had gotten up. He grabs Fuji, Axe body slams Fuji on the floor before they leave the ring. I guess in the process, Warlord tagged Barbarian, and it's just the Powers of Pain and the Conquistadors left at this point. And the Powers of Pain, to the shock of all, they leave the ring, and they're like helping Fuji to his feet. The Warlord's like dusting him off, and Barbarian's adjusting Fuji's mask, and they walk him over to their corner. And the Conquistadors, they're like, we're working over the Barbarian. One of them hits the ropes. Fuji trips the Conquistador. Barbarian bounces off the rope, hits a diving headbutt, and pins Conquistador 1 or 2 to finally win the match and put an end to it. This match was like 42 minutes of change, I understand. And celebrating the victory, the Powers of Pain held Fuji up on their shoulders. Demolition comes back out. They Smash body slams Barbarian. Axe body slams Warlord. I don't know if something went wrong there, because it looked like Warlord's legs ended up hitting the ropes. Took the big guys down with a pair of clotheslines, and then Fuji tells his new team, apparently, he said, hey, let's get out of here, and they leave, and Demolition's music plays. Now, this was kind of a bit of different disappointment to me. I mean, I was thrilled when the Powers of Pain came in. I mean, because the problem was, the Powers of Pain as a tag team, in my opinion, has never gotten their due. Everybody buzzes about Demolition or buzzes about the Legion of Doom, but the Powers of Pain, they just never got their due, because the thing is, after they had joined Fuji, eventually they went on, their feud with Demolition continued all the way to WrestleMania 5, when Demolition defeated both Powers of Pain and Fuji in a 3-on-2 handicap match. And from that point on, the Powers of Pain, they spent the rest of that year working with the Hart Foundation and the Bushwhackers. In early 1990, they were working with the Rockers until they were split up. I mean, it's like these guys, they went from, where they were as a team, and then they were split up. They went from, where they were it's like they're here as a tag team getting nowhere, and then they're split up, and they're kind of like, kind of pushed down the card a little further. So I guess the whole split was pretty much a step down for both of them. Because around that, because what happened was Fuji started managing the Orient Express, which had come in at that point. The original Orient Express of Sato and Tanaka. Now, as I said about the Conquistadors being on this team, I guess it's safe to say reverse psychology was used in this match, because I'm sure everyone expected the Conquistadors to be the first tag team to be eliminated from the matchup. Now, my understanding, there was a outside of the ring deal happened a month before this show where the Rougeau brothers got ribbed. They thought it was the British Bulldog, but it turned out it was Mr. Perfect. And I think in retaliation of Dynamite Kid, Jacques Rougeau hit him with a roll of quarters. And then both Rougeaus and Bulldogs had a meeting about no more backstage fighting. And I don't know if it was true that they were made to wrestle each other every night for the next month. And I mean, if that was the case, I take it the matches went off without a hitch. And then the Bulldogs decided they were going to leave after Survivor Series, so the Rougeaus thought the Bulldogs were going to try something, which is the reason the Rougeaus got eliminated first from this matchup. The Conquistadors, like I said, them being on the team, I think had the Islanders, Haku and Tama, if they didn't break up earlier that year, I think they would have been on Demolition's team. Had the Powers of Pain remained faces, I think working with the Brainbusters, I think that's money. That was money left on the table. Now, about Powers of Pain Demolition, the feud went on. On February 3rd, 1989, they had a match where Barbarian and Warlord hit their double-team clothesline off the top rope, and they would have won the match if Axe didn't prevent the 3 count from happening. And also from that was where they got this. The silly thing was Axe got a hold of Mr. Fuji's cane. He's using it on the Powers of Pain. The referee didn't disqualify him for that. But then when Fuji entered the ring and threw salt into the eyes of Axe, and then broke the chain over Smash's back, then the Powers of Pain were DQ'd. I mean, that match right there, I mean, they could have had the Powers of Pain win the belts, tag belts in that matchup, and still do the 3-on-2 match at WrestleMania 5. What they could have had, Demolition would say, hey, we want the belts back, and Fuji would say, you want the belts back, you got to beat all 3 of us. And they could have done it that way. I mean, that's how I think, looking back on the situation. It made sense that Fuji did get pinned, took their finisher at WrestleMania 5. And after this match, they had Sean Mooney interviewing Bad News Brown about what happened. And Bad News referred to the show as Survival Series. And Gene Okerlund's interviewing Fuji and the Powers of Pain, and like just about all of Warlord's makeup face paint was wiped off from. You could see they're still sweating and shit. And Barbarian, I don't know if he's still tough to understand to this day when he speaks. But Fuji was saying, Demolition disrespected him and all this other stuff. And Warlord entered the promo by saying, Demolition, you wouldn't listen to Master Fuji. We'll listen to Master Fuji. And from there, oh boy, well, there was interviews with the other teams or matches yet to come. But I'm not going to divulge the interviews. The next matchup, we see co-captains Jake the Snake Roberts and Hacksaw Jim Duggan and their teammates Ken Patera, Tito Santana, and Scott Casey. Their opponents were co-captains Andre the Giant and Dino Bravo, and their teammates of Harley Race, Ravishing Rick Rude, and Mr. Perfect, with Bobby the Brain Heenan and Frenchie Martin in their corner. Now, my understanding, earlier that year, Duggan had knocked Andre out with his 2x4. Roberts and Rude had feuded over Roberts' wife at the time, Cheryl. Roberts scared Andre with his snake, Damien. Patera and Bravo did house shows, kind of had a little feud going back earlier that year. Perfect debuted a few months before this. Race returned after getting surgery done. Originally, now, the placement of Scott Casey here's another one. I don't know if they had to get somebody on short notice. Originally, when this match was announced, the Junkyard Dog was going to be on the Roberts-Duggan team, but he ended up leaving the company, and then on TV they announced that B. Brian Blair was now going to be on the team. But I understand that Blair didn't want to be used as a jobber after the breakup of the Killer Bees a month or so before the show took place. So Blair left the company, and I guess Scott Casey, who was mostly used as enhancement, preliminary jobber, he was given the opportunity, given a payday, shall we say, on pay-per-view. Alrighty. And nearly going to the match, Scott Casey was being punished. Mr. Perfect hit his father's axe attack, which was the like a clothesline to the forehead that Kurt's father, the late Larry the Axe Henning, was known for. Perfect got worked over by Jim Duggan, and I think Jim Duggan, Tito Santana, and Jake Roberts and Ken Patera practically, not the whole team. Eventually, Rude pins Patera with the Rude Awakening, and unless I'm mistaken, Patera left after this show. Even though they aired matches of him losing to Rick Rude and Ron Bass after this pay-per-view. Race hit a dropkick on Scott Casey. I don't know how old Harley was at this time, but that's impressive for someone who had surgery a few months earlier. Casey attempts the O'Connor roll, but Bravo hangs onto the ropes. And Casey walked right into Bravo's side suplex and eliminated him from the matchup. So just like that, it was just Roberts, Duggan, and Santana left to face all of Andre and Bravo's. The Andre Bravo team was still together. All right. Like I said, can't remember everything, folks. But at one point, Race gives Santana a pile driver, but he kicks out. Tito eventually hits the flying forearm and pins Harley Race to eliminate him from the match. Andre finally gets in there, and he basically, let's just say he goes to town, or should I say, he practically eats Tito for lunch here. He's like just throwing chops and punches. He's sat on his chest twice. He choked him while he's up against the ropes. He whips Tito to the ropes. Andre attempts a backdrop. Tito tries for a sunset flip, but Andre drops to a knee and pins Tito to eliminate him from the match. And who's to say if Andre farted, because he was known for that. Who's to say if Andre farted as he pinned Tito. At that point, Duggan comes in the ring, does his 3-point stance clothesline, and Andre is tied in the ropes. And then Duggan's attacking not only Andre, but Rude and I forgot who was standing next to Rude on the apron. Bravo or Perfect, obviously. Duggan tagged in Roberts, and he's going to town on Andre, Rude, and Bravo. And he's choking Andre while he's still tied in the ropes. But then Andre gets loose from the ropes and hits Jake with a headbutter. And Andre tagged in Rude, and Jake took punishment for such a long time. Jake at one point hits Bravo with the short arm clothesline, attempts the DDT, but Rude clotheslines Jake from the apron. Bravo gives Jake a pile driver. Duggan finally gets the hot tag, and he and Bravo are going at him. Duggan tries a 3-point stance clothesline, but Frenchie Martin grabs his leg. Duggan turns around to go after him. Bravo knees Duggan in the back. He goes out to the floor. Body slams Duggan on the floor. Frenchie waving the Quebec flag. And then Duggan grabs a 2x4. He chases Frenchie into the ring and then hits Bravo twice with the 2x4 in front of the referee, which got Duggan disqualified, eliminated from the matchup. And you can see, the editors, or shall we say at Peacock, they bleep Duggan, because I don't know if he said it loud enough for the crowd to hear. And when he said bullshit, after it was announced Duggan had been disqualified and gone for the match. So at this point, Jake Roberts, he's all by himself against 4 men. Takes more punishment. Rude, at one point he does his fist from the top rope on Jake and stands over his prone body, does his hip swivel thing. And then Rude is looking towards his teammates. Looked like he was going to tag someone in, but Roberts got up, pulled down Rude's tights, not the ones with Cheryl Roberts on them, exposing his backside. Roberts gives Rude the DDT and pins him to eliminate him from the match, but Andre comes in the ring, and like I said earlier that he, basically ate Tito Santana for lunch. Well, I think it's safe to say at this point, he practically had Jake for Din here. I mean, he's pounding away with fists. He bit him and put him in the corner. He bit him. He keeps choking him. You can hear Bobby Heenan yell, "Squeeze! Squeeze!" And the late Joey Morello was the inside referee. He keeps counting, and like Andre keeps breaking at 4. And then eventually Joey, who of course was the son of the late Gorilla Monsoon, I mean, Andre wasn't breaking at 4, and then he goes over to Howard Finkel to say he's been disqualified. Even outside referee Earl Hebner, he comes up to the apron saying, Andre! And then Finkel announces to the crowd, Andre's been disqualified. And then, before leaving the ring, Andre drops Roberts with a headbutter. Andre steps out of the ring, perfect, just pins Jake, who had nothing left at that point, enabling the team to win. Perfect and bravo to survivors. They celebrate with Andre out on the floor until Roberts, who had just seemingly had been choked out, brings Damien into the ring, and Andre, Perfect, Bravo, Heenan, and Frenchie skedaddle away from the ring. Unbelievable. And then it was time for the main event, as we saw co-captains, the Big Boss Man and Akeem with Slick, take with their teammates, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase with Virgil, King Haku and the Red Rooster, which is with Bobby the Brain Heenan, as they took on co-captains Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage with Elizabeth, their teammates Coco Beware, Hillbilly Jim, and Hercules. Well, a month before the show took place, Boss Man attacked Hogan on the Brother Love show. DiBiase tried to buy Hercules as his slave, but Hercules wouldn't allow that to happen. From there, I don't know if there were any other feuds going on here, but Savage and DiBiase start the match. Hercules and Rooster were butting heads. Both Coco Beware and King Haku were taking punishment each time they got in the early going. Haku took a double boot from Hogan and Hillbilly. Eventually, Savage pins the Rooster with the elbow from the top rope. Akeem had pinned Hillbilly Jim with a big splash. Boss Man finally got in there. He pinned Coco Beware with the Boss Man Slam, and then Hogan comes in the ring, and Hogan and Boss Man are going at it, and Hogan body slams Boss Man. Boss Man hits his spine buster on Hogan. DiBiase, he pinned Hercules with Schoolboy after he was distracted by Virgil. Then Hercules attacked Virgil on the floor. DiBiase was distracted. Savage comes in the ring. Schoolboy's DiBiase. At one point, I think Boss Man missed a splash off the top rope onto Hogan or Savage. Savage and Boss Man were legal, but Slick grabs a hold of Elizabeth, and he's trying to pull her away from the ringside area, but Hogan comes out of the ring and attacks Slick, but only for Boss Man to leave the ring, and he forgot about the match, and he's pummeling away at Hogan, handcuffs him to the bottom rope, and beats him up with a nightstick. He's choking him with the stick, and Boss Man got counted out in the process. And even after he was officially eliminated, he hits Savage with the nightstick. Akeem had a big splash on Savage. Akeem pushes the referee, which was Earl Hebner. He disqualifies Akeem, eliminating him from the matchup, leaving King Haku all by himself to deal with Savage and Hogan, who was still handcuffed on the floor. Let me see. Wow. Oof. Wow. Let me see. Eventually, Haku attempted try to crescent kick on the apron to Savage, but Slick, who was hanging on to Savage from the apron, he took the kick, and then Hogan, still handcuffed to the rope, clotheslines Heenan on the floor, and then Elizabeth goes to Slick, and Jesse Ventura is saying he's going to pick his pocket, and she gets the key to the handcuffs, frees Hogan. He gets up to the apron. Haku hits an impressive splash from the top rope. Savage kicked out of that. Haku hits Savage with a crescent kick. And then looked like Savage kind of fell, or he reached for Hogan and tagged him. And Hogan went to town on Haku, eventually pins him with a leg drop and everything. Hogan and Savage to be the survivors, and they celebrate the victory as Hogan lifts Elizabeth up in his arms, and Savage, had that. It was a seed planter actually back at SummerSlam a few months earlier that they were going to eventually split up and feud. Well, I did enjoy this. This show was pretty good, even though it wasn't as good as the first Survivor Series a year prior. I kind of wish they could have stuck with the co-captains concept. Unless, because the following year they started doing 4-on-4 elimination matches. But folks, let me know what you thought of this video. It was a pretty good show, of course, Survivor Series 1988.